Hey Collective, it's Al and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be dedicated towards the collective and in particular what I would call the first waivers. As many of you know, I've been talking on the channel about the fact that we are running into two timelines or colliding with one another right now. And one of the things I had noted, one of the most clear examples of that is the fact that we're going from 5D and 5G at the same time. And so that's a clear depiction of two timelines colliding. The other thing that's happening is as that's occurring, like most things, there's multiple realities within each world, right? So the thing that I've noticed is that where we're pushing for a lot more first responders, we're also having what I call the first waivers. So these are the first line of defense to whether it's the 3D or the 5D. So this message is dedicated towards the collective, those of you who are first waivers, meaning that you have already mastered your own particular specialty and you're now moving into a realm of elder. So you're in the turquoise leadership, but your task is something a little bit more in alignment with actually leading a group of people within your own house. So what I wanted to say about this is the message is pretty direct, and it was a download that I got. And the thing about it is that it's one of those moments where duty calls over what I'm doing on my side project. Which is having to do with the show. And so though I will be posting something that deals with the introduction of the divine universe and what that means to all of us for altruistic channels, I think I'm going to upload that for tomorrow morning instead of doing it today, so that these run on separate days, because I have to go do other stuff tomorrow. Life gets in the way sometimes when you have to, kind of balance things out. Having said that, this is going to be on my personal page, so as you guys know, this is a very direct message. I don't typically sugarcoat what the divine hands me. It's not my task. That's not my service, but I wanted to go ahead and just preface you guys by saying that I'm going to trigger you, and so just understand that there's a reason, a higher reason that's coming through me for you all, but you're going to have to figure it out with the divine on your own terms. Okay. So essentially what happened is that I had taken a walk today as I prepare for tomorrow, and one of the things that happened is that y'all know I tend to listen to music when I'm walking, and the divine tends to DJ. I just put on whatever the shuffle is and I let it play, and there's songs in there that I don't actually have ever heard, but the point being that specifically he decided to play Big Frida for me and Lizzo. And fun fact, actually, no Lizzo. I bartended for her at Voodoo. But anyway, the moral story is, I think she was a unicorn that day. Girl, you were on stage. I can't remember if you were the unicorn or if it was one of the girls. Anyway, shout out to you. But essentially what it was I was like, why am I listening to Big Frida from the divine? And then I realized what it is. It's the divine was reminding me where I'm from and who I am and the strength of my character and the courage that I have within me. And as I ascend and as I do what I need to do as far as what my actual task is, duty, and then what my side project is, which is what I'm looking for, to build a turquoise leadership and a show that talks about raising the vibration of humanity. The two worlds came colliding. And so the point was to remind me that New Orleanians do this. We do double duty. We're a different breed of people. And so I was listening to the music, and the first thing that I'm going to say is that the song that immediately followed that, I think it was called Karaoke, was a song by Miley Cyrus, and it was called something Walk, Liberty Walk. And that's the download for you guys, and that's what triggered what I'm about to say. So essentially what's happening is that we are now moving into what I would call in the divine universe phase 2. So we've had a year and almost a half of the preliminary side of this, which is the whole P word and the V word that's spreading around and all of that stuff. And it was a test of faith, and those that were faithful did their best to make sure that they stayed high vibrational and that they focused their energies on what they invested their energy into, so they avoided certain things that were just part of a narrative that it doesn't speak to who we are spiritually. Having said that, this is where I'm about to trigger you guys. The question that came through was very clear. It was where I was reminded that I had asked you all where your loyalty was, and that was about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago. I can't remember now. But the reason I'm bringing it up again is because the subject of what's about to happen in phase 2, where the divine shows its hand in response to what's been going on in 3D, is going to play a big part around your faith, and has to do with being faithful and having to rely on your faith solely for what's about to play out. So one of the things that happens when people run into a stalemate is that nobody moves, and when you end up in that situation, you end up not able to navigate your own course of action because everybody feels stuck. So what ends up happening is that if no one necessarily steps up and does what they need to do as far as their intuitive nature, where they think that they might be judged, or they don't speak their truth, or they feel like they're going to somehow be castigated or something for what they're saying, then things stay stagnant. And so sometimes the divine universe has to to basically shake shit up. And so specifically, as we know, California is about to get hit with a really big earthquake. And so I'm trying to do my best to get out of Dodge for it. I actually don't mind being part of earthquakes. I find them kind of romantic, to be honest with you. But I think that's because of the fact that I was having sex with the first one in Northridge. I was 14. I was a hoe. Actually, it's great. I'm going to go with that story just to tell you guys a little bit. Not to get too graphic, but it'll break the trigger point here that's coming. But essentially what had happened was I was out one night and I was still living at my parents'. I was only 14. I had just left the cult, and so I was having low self-esteem. Anyway, I picked up this guy and went back to his place. And let me just say that it was not the best time I've ever had. And I was literally in, we were doing our thing, and I just remember going, wow, is this like the whole experience? And I was kind of a little bit like, and then the world started shaking. I'm like, oh my god, is he really like rattling my world? Like, is that really happening here? And then shit started falling off the shelves, and I went, oh thank god, it's a fucking earthquake. And then so it kind of ruined both the environment, the atmosphere, and I just kind of laughed at myself. I'm like, oh thank god, because I was a little disappointed. Anyway, just thought I'd tell you that. So I don't have a fear of earthquakes. My guides are telling me that I'll be fine. I don't fear death. When we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I understand it is a shadow of death, and I face that fear, and it doesn't bother me. In case you haven't noticed, as I learned in that cult, we come back. It's called, what do you call it? When we reincarnate. So it's not like, that's why I have a theory that it's a simulation, is because people call it a lifetime. I call it a simulation because we come back, so to speak. Anyway, long moral story of it was, the reason I'm even bringing this up is because it starts with a shake, rattle, and roll, and it's basically the universe going, okay, since nobody wants to move, we're going to move everybody, and so there's going to be like a huge migration that takes place, and a whole bunch of shit that's going to go down. And the thing is, I'm trying not to alarm people, but you got to know, you understand that things are going on. The world isn't exactly making sense. 2 + 2 now equals 7, and everybody's going, okay, I guess that's true. Duh, obviously something's going to happen. So essentially what the reason I'm even bringing this up is because of that, things are about to happen, and it's going to be like a very quick domino effect that goes across. The question that we are all that's being asked of us is, are we faithful? Do we believe in a higher power? Do we believe in a divine universe, a God, Allah, whoever you believe to? Because what was noted to me, and this is where I'm going to trigger you guys, so just get ready, I want to say it very directly, is for people who believe that they are faithful, then why did everybody run away from the divine in order to get this, instead of actually going to the Heavenly Father for the right thing to do? And the way that it was phrased to me is that, though I understand that fear was involved, if you're truly faithful, then why did you show faithlessness in that moment? And so the thing that's going to happen now, from what I've been downloaded with, is that we're going to have our faith truly tested. And it's going to be a lot of the population, especially those of you who are first wavers, who are going to have to lead people through what we call the desert experience, where Moses went through the desert and that whole journey about having to navigate and not knowing what was going to happen, and really going into the mystery, into the darkness. And so for those of you who are first wavers, you are already ascendants in the fact that you have either found a role within the divine universe that has you leading spiritually, or has you leading in the houses of God, or in Judaism, or whatever faith denomination you come from. Some of you are actually first wavers, meaning that you've done the work that you needed to do to align yourself with ascension and a higher state of being. And so now your task is to act and turn and transform into an elder, where instead of just being a master, you're now tasked with helping the collective make this jump that the whole universe is basically asking of us at this time. So let's go over why it's happening so that people have a better understanding. Now, first wavers, you understand that we were going into this from 2020, when we knew that there was going to be a massive hard reset, and a lot of us were told that we needed to go ahead and just align ourselves with the fact that we were not going to be seeing the same people anymore. We're going to have to let go of a lot of things, and to let go of the 3D experience, and to be ready to move into the 5D, and that they would collide. And that's what these timelines are that are coming together. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that you also understood that as part of that, you would have to stand the test of integrity and stand alone in your own power and be a person of faith and truly abide by your personal navigational system, your intuitive sense. And what had happened was that a lot of us went against that and decided that the fear of the physical world took over the fact that 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 we had been told that the divine would take care of us. And so though I'm not castigating you or judging any one of you, understand that now what happens now is that the collective goes through the faith process where you will literally be challenged in every way in order to understand if you truly are faithful and where your loyalty lies. Now, if you get triggered by that, then I would just ask you, then go talk to the divine, go talk to God, Allah, whoever you serve, and ask them why that is triggering you, because your house should be solid. Your house should be where if I say something like this, you understand that it's not directed necessarily to you as the first wavers, it's directed to the people that you are leading. How do we as turquoise leaders or as first wavers now lead people through the darkness without necessarily going too lower vibrational for ourselves? And that's a really big question for us to have to start dealing with now. So as we move into this phase 2, where now the earth is going to move and things are going to shake up and a lot of secrets are going to be revealed, understand that it's going to be a test of faith and integrity. And the one thing I can say for first wavers is your question now, once you get away from the emotional reaction, if you had one, to what I said, you have to now look at the fact, well, okay, there is validity in the fact, why did I do that and blah blah blah. And whether you agree or disagree, the point is, how do you now lead people who may have long-term effects for making the wrong choices? Not saying that it was this or that. I'm saying wrong choices during the reset. How do you lead them without letting your emotional nature fall apart? And how do you deliver truth in a way that's uplifting and that bonds and builds communities? We're building a village, and it takes all of us to do it. So once you get beyond that, the question is, how do we keep our vibration high, and how do we still operate in the 3D reality? There's a disconnect from the download I got where we are focus on just ourselves, and that we can individually create our own universe. But the thing that happens with that is you have to remember that the majority of us is the test that we're going through. It is a collective venture. So if the collective, the entirety of humanity is not brought together, then they fear things. And so what happens is that they manifest the fear. So no matter how high vibrational we are, the caution is you still need to do what you're asked to do, which is lead your people. And understand that though you are high vibrational, you're going to have to be high vibrational in muddy water sometimes, and you're going to have to face your fears. And that's one of the things that is part of the backlash, is that the divine wants to ensure that those of you who are first wavers understand that these tests are not aimed necessarily at you, but it is a test of your integrity and your faith. It is up to you as leaders to figure out how to best navigate these really, really bumpy waters that's to come, while still being able to stay above board. One of the greatest struggles that we're going to have is that those of you who are masters in this particular reality at this time have to understand that part of the mastery at this point is to remember that we're ascending as a collective. So though you may master it, if you stay too stagnant, then you become almost redundant to the equation, right? Because you're not adding value, you're not adding anything to the universe that's creative and expansive that helps the people rise. And so because of that, be advised that the divine doesn't want you to get a nasty shock when the tower comes and hits you in the face and you become susceptible to what's going on around you, because the majority of the population is still buying into the fear. So though we do want to be uplifting and we do want to make sure that we focus on the positivity in the world, we're being cautioned to remember that we still reside in a simulation, and the simulation is shifting. And so with the shift, change will come. So you have to be strong, and you have to have your faith that everything will work out. And like I've said for a very long time, I'm reminded to remind you that the divine specifically told us that we are absolutely safe in this experience if we believe we are. If we don't, then we're on our own. And that is the journey that Moses took through the desert, is to understand that no matter what happens, you have to be able to stand and go with the flow. And that's really challenging. So the other part of this whole equation is that I did also get a download that responded to the fact that we're being asked to start pooling together our resources. If you happen to be on the same vibrational wavelength, and you may be Catholic or Episcopalian or Jewish or whatever your denomination is, if you're now finding that you and someone else, especially regionally, is speaking the same language, then maybe take an opportunity to look at the fact that we are doing a collective venture and we're trying to lead a group of people that may not be awakened yet. And so for those that are awake, if we're being spoken to in the same language, in the same way, then maybe it's time to consider the alliances I had been speaking to before. Because there's a lot more power sometimes in 1, 2, 3, or 4 people coming together and building the community needed to make the community efforts go faster. So that's the second part of this. So when I say that, one of the things that we've been working on as a collective and as leaders within the collective, especially first waivers, is we have to let go of the ego. Yes, it's very important for us to make sure that we're protected and that we take care of our family and take care of ourselves. But at the end of the day, if you are faithful, then you understand that you will always be taken care of. It's now about the collective, about community exercises, about reaching across the different divisive lines and finding a way to bridge these gaps to each other. Hold on. Sorry about that. My roommates were passing by. So as we start to build these communities, you can do it through the online services. You can do it on entertainment if you can get the shows picked up. And that brings me to the next portion of this, is the divine unions. So here's the thing with the divine unions. The divine unions are basically a group of people. The one thing that we're being cautioned about in the download was that as we go through these shakeups, part of it is sometimes helping everybody overcome their fears very quickly. And one of the best things you can do is band together in brother and sisterhood. So if you speak the same language and you have gotten rid of your ego, then there should not be an issue with actually reaching out to each other and saying, hey, we seem to be on the same wavelength here. How can we build our villages so that the villagers are safe and how everybody can be, make it through without overstepping our bounds, because it's still a free will condition. And we're not supposed to be dealing with people who are unawakened. They have their own life going on in their own universe, but their choices are affecting the reality that we're building. So how do we navigate the two waters in a diplomatic way that allows a new leadership to step forward that you are part of? But you have to understand that means you have to work with each other. So we need to finally shed this, or otherwise they're going to shed it for us. So that was the last thing I wanted to say. Oh, and then with the divine unions. One of the things that's happening with the divine union in general is the fact that we are in a place of faith. And one of the strongest things that happens when we get tested is that we will be tested in every way. So a lot of you first waivers, you went through a very serious set of a testing phase. Where essentially you were challenged with a lot of different dreams and visions and things like that, and you were asked to rise above it, and you were asked to share it in a way, and you essentially were graded, if you will, by the universe as to how you handled it. What did you say? Did you get petty? And all of that other stuff, right? So now that you've gone through that, understand that the testing that you're receiving now is a leadership skill set testing phase. So what I mean by that, I'm supposed to share what happened yesterday. So what happened yesterday was I was walking down the street, and I don't know why I keep doing that. I think it's my hair tickling. But I was walking down the street yesterday, and a woman attacked me. And one of the things that happened is that I've been trained by the divine for so long that I really had to hold all my energy in from laughing, because I was just like, oh, come on, this is so obvious. And so she wanted my Coke, and she grabbed it out of my hand and like a big thing. And I just let it go. I was like, okay. And I kept walking, and everybody just looked at me like I was a fucking unicorn. And I just looked at them, and I'm like, what? She wanted a Coke, and I just kept walking. It was so not worth it. It was just a perfect example of what you've asked for. Some of you asked to be leaders in this new world. You asked to be leaders in the houses of God. You're asked to be leaders and get your dreams to come true. And one of the things that happens when you really truly excel or ascend is that you can become famous or infamous. Well, hopefully famous more than anything else. Or you become your name becomes known as someone that's a leader. And so with that comes challenges, new sets of problems that you have to know how to navigate. And so before we finally go into this phase, you're going to be challenged with things that you might encounter as part of your new timeline. So for me, what it was immediately I understood that as a leader in a spiritual circle, I might piss people off and they may come at me. And it's my responsibility to be able to handle it without losing my vibration and still leading people forward. And so it was a very, very dramatic example of a test that I was being given. But it was an example of what it looks like to not go petty and what it looks like. She didn't hurt me. She wasn't trying to hit me. If I would have been a lower vibration, I would have reacted in a way that was overly, you know what I mean? It would have been conflictive, and it would have accelerated something that all she wanted was the Coke, so I just let it go, and I was like, well, okay. And I understood that it was just a test. So you're going to have people that are going to literally challenge you in that way. You're going to have questions, from what I'm understanding, some of you, especially the first waivers, where it's going to be a fight or flight scenario, where you're going to feel like you are in danger. So the thing to remember is that you're supposed to be present every single day that you are walking around and doing your thing. If you feel like someone's watching you, then be aware. Take the fucking headphones off and be advised that you are probably being watched. Your intuition doesn't lie to you. But don't get paranoid about it. Just be conscious, because they're tests. If you want to ever become a mogul and you have an entire empire that has to deal with people and the humanity itself, or you build communities, you're going to piss other people off, especially if they're low vibrational, because lower vibrations are more prone to being manipulated, right? And so understand that you're going to be going through that experience. So if you are reactive, then it's really hard to take you seriously at what you're trying to accomplish. But if you can hold your own and remember who you are, not caring about who they think you are or all of that stuff, then you can get your blessings that much quicker, because the universe knows that they can entrust you with what it is you're dreaming to have. It's the perfect example of people who, I used to love that song Rumors by Lindsay Lohan, but one of the things I can't listen to it anymore because of the fact that I realized that we asked to be famous. Some of us, I've never really necessarily wanted to be famous. I just wanted to be, part of the leadership here, and I wanted to make sure that I lived up to my soul's expectations. But there is a byproduct of this that I have to, that is a blessing. But that's the point. We stop seeing it as a blessing and we see it as like a negative thing. And so we start to get a false sense of reality in those moments. And what they're making sure with you all, with us, for this particular collective that I'm speaking to, is that you don't say stupid shit like, oh my God, these people never leave me alone. Or, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to be this difficult. Or, why is everybody all in my business? I just wish they would leave me alone. Careful. What your words and what you say as you step into these roles will define how your experience goes. It's one of those things. Be grateful. Always live in an attitude of gratitude no matter what happens. And remember that for those of you in first waivers, you have several questions that you're going to be asked, and it's something that you intuitively already know. But we're doubting ourselves because we're allowing other people to tell us what we can and cannot do. Remember, as far as this is concerned, if you believe in a higher power, then you know that you are protected. So they can talk all they want. It is how you choose to not respond or how you choose to respond that was the grading system here. So having said all of that, as you can see, it's a pretty big second phase. This phase 2 is going to be pretty dramatic, and it's going to be something that really, really gets a lot of people to awaken. And so what the Divine wanted me to convey to you all is, when you all were asking for these dreams, and to really, when you were ascending and you were doing the work and you were doing your spiritual discovery, you asked at some point for this particular group to be able to be of service. And so what I'm supposed to remind you is that you knew that you were walking into mystery, and you knew that your leadership skills would be challenged. So don't be surprised now if towers come down left, right, and center. And he wanted me to end on a very specific note. If you have created an empire for yourself, and I'm not saying I know who this is to, because I don't think it's anyone in particular, but remember how towers operate. Towers are moments where things that are built in shoddy conditions, either lies, hypocrisy, or some sort of deception that builds it, must come down in order for you to truly get the rewards that are now being handed to you if you're a divine being. So let's say, for example, what can I use that people won't get too triggered by? Let's say that you are a woman who I don't know anybody like this guy, so don't come at me for this one, but let's say you're a woman who got pregnant from one guy, and you tell another guy, you convince him to marry you, thinking that it's his baby. What do you think is going to happen in that scenario in the second phase? It's going to come out that that's not his baby, and now you're going to have two problems that are going to come colliding at you. And it's because you built a lie that you can't outrun. So be advised that in those situations, now is when everything comes colliding and collapsing down. Because if you're a divine being, then what they're trying to make sure is that the person who is the deceiver is exposed, and the person who is the victim, if they're a divine being, starts to pay attention to the red flags. And so in order for them to get the next level blessings, it's going to be a shit show for some people. So the best thing you can do is do what I do and do what other spiritual leaders do, which is live with your integrity and be honest. I have put all of my sins I've ever committed out there. I used to wonder why I did that, and now that I've gotten in my position and so forth in the collective army, if you will, I realized it was because I needed to make sure that no one had any leverage over me. There seems to be a backlash going on right now with certain people who are more materialistic, and things are being hoarded over them. Some people are being blackmailed. Some people are being threatened to be exposed for secrets that they don't want out in the world. And the only way to truly face those, the only way to rid yourself of that is to face it own it, and just assume that it will work out. Because what's happening is that some of you, I don't know who I'm pointing at here, but some of us in the collective have shadows that are so big because we ourselves are so worried about it that we're spending all our energy building this huge monsoon. And the longer that we go and we keep, oh, they're going to hate me, oh my God, we're never going to live this down, oh my God, they're going to destroy me, oh, there goes my career, and you create such a huge bomb that it's inevitable going to pop. And so if you don't get ahead of the curve, you're going to be the recipient of how it lands on you, and so will everybody in your vicinity. So the divine actually told me specifically, I don't know who this one's to, but just go with it. Whoever these people are that have these huge secrets or have made deals with the devil but are ready to walk away from the devil and just give it up, just know that whoever your partners are, entrust that if the divine has brought them into your life, or if they are on your radar and they somehow are part of how you make your way out, they will go with you. They will deal with it, and you just tell them the truth, and they will probably forgive you. It is up to each individual, unless it's like with cheating and all that stuff, because that's like a whole different sexual thing. But I'm talking about like just in general, your tribes. Just be clean with them. Tell them the truth of what's happening, what's going on, and watch as they support you. Remember, you're moving into a better pasture. You're moving into a much better kingdom, and anything you build after all of this collapses will be your dream. But up until now, it's a deceived dream. It's a fake dream. It's not exactly where you want it to be. And now all of us have to pay the consequences for that. Remember, I had said, as we went into this weekend, or this past weekend, that we were going to be getting a karmic wave. And it appears that some of you are starting to feel it. As a collective leader, I'm just going to say this too. Remember that one of the things I had noticed is that I had said that we were going down the same road of Atlantis. And one of the things that I remembered about Atlantis is that they started to play with dark alchemy. And without getting all political about that, my point is this. They sent a wave to eradicate it. Right? That was how the divine universe handled it, is that they sent a huge wave and it wiped out the civilization. With things going on and repeating the same cycle, there are different ways that wave can manifest. It can be earthquakes, it can be tsunamis, it can be hurricanes, it can be all sorts of stuff. The question that we should ask ourselves is, how do we cleanse ourselves of the things that make us afraid, so that when these things happen, we are able to lead as we have been asked and tasked to do? And that is what's happening now. So face these fears 100%. Know that with the karmic wave, this one in particular seems to have an unseen factor to it that has to do with what I asked as I opened this particular video. So be advised that you will be challenged because you wanted the best. You are worthy. You are the chosen. You are anointed. You are the leaders. You are mavericks. You are agents of change. You're temperances. You bring balance to the world. You're rebalancers. Whatever you are, your hybrids or star seeds, whatever you are, each of you have tasks. And one of these days, if I ever get to production, I'm going to show what that looks like. But everyone has tasks that they need to do. But you can't accept the blessings and the responsibility that comes with that if you are having all of these fears and insecurities and all that stuff. So be advised that the universe right now is moving into phase 2. And before it shows its hand, you're going to get it first. You're going to see where you have snakes in the grass, and it's going to be kind of, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say I am going to give you empathy. I'm not going to give you pity. I'm going to say I empathize with your struggle, because I do understand that it's going to be a lot of people that you thought had your best interest, but understand that the divine loves you and wants the best of you. It's not, they don't want to hand you, if you're materialistic, millions of dollars, only to see you lose it with some of these people. So they're going to destroy these people in front of you. Not literally, but you see what I'm saying? They're going to expose them in a way that really can hurt you. But it's better to do it this way than to have you truly build what you're meant to do on this world and have someone come and just annihilate it. I've had to, in this past week alone, I've had people from the past just coming out of left, right, and center, and I'm just looking, and I've made my choices. And so I will say to you guys, when these things happen, understand that if you're finishing a karmic cycle, if you know that you are excelling and you're about to move up, if you're leveling up, then anything that's a threat is going to be around you, and you're going to have to discern which people are friends and which of them are foes. And understand that sometimes, even in allegiances, people can get jealous. You wanted the big leagues. We wanted to make sure that we did our best and be of service. Well, this is the next level. This is one of the problems that comes with leveling up, is the fact that you can't always believe what was true in the past, because the new world you're a part of isn't the same. So you have to navigate the waters. I hope that makes sense to you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. Please go ahead and check out altruistic channels for the video dedicated towards the whole topic of what it is to be part of the divine universe and how your faith and spirituality and all of the different denominations fits into that. And understand, guys, the divine is doing everything it can to ensure that your happiness and your brilliance shines. And it just wants to make sure that you are aware that this is what you asked for. These are just last minute tests just to make sure you're solid.